This year's NFL Draft is in Pittsburgh. The three-day event begins tonight at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. We'll have every pick once again on ESPN, along with our usual expert analysis. It's also available on the NFL Network. And as always, ABC's coverage focuses on the prospects' journey to the draft. To a team with plenty at stake tonight, the Cowboys. They hold 2 picks in the first round. The Cowboys have no plans to pursue a long-term deal with franchise-tagged wide receiver George Pickens after he posted a career year. Dallas placed a non-exclusive $27.3 million franchise tag on Pickens in March that he still has not signed. Here's Executive Vice President Stephen Jones on the Pickens contract dilemma.
I mean, let's start with the fact it's not easy. Having 2 receivers being paid top of the market, I mean, that's obviously a stretch, especially when you have other great players on your team. A quarterback that's been here being the highest paid player in this league for many years now. Certainly that's part of it. The other thing is the newness of George being here. And I think George has just done an amazing job. I mean, he's exceeded all expectations. I think anybody, or we wouldn't have gotten him for a third-round pick. So that's a plus. And, a lot of these things, they make their way toward a long-term deal. But that's the biggest part of it, between the business and the newness of it. I think that's a big part of it.
All right, so putting the clamps on the fact that they are not going to pursue a long-term deal with George Pickens. We have Mina and RC back here with us. So with all this news going on with Pickens, Ryan, what do you think the Cowboys should do tonight?
Well, first off, God bless the Jones family. They just keep giving you content even when they don't need to give it to you. Stephen Jones didn't have to announce to the world that they weren't trying to do a deal with George Pickens. They could have just let George Pickens play under the franchise tag. I mean, they out here like Sway Lee. Talk about somebody come get her. She dancing like a stripper. I mean, you listen, if you in a relationship, you don't go tell the world, yeah, I like her, but I ain't finna marry her. There's something about George Pickens and being within that locker room that they are saying, okay, he has to go prove it again. He was the best wide receiver on this team last year. So what they're telling me, at least in my mind, is we're going to draft a wide receiver if Jordan Tyson is there at number 12. And if we draft a wide receiver at number 12, what we're hoping is someone was sitting at home last year watching the film of George Pickens play on the level of Jamar Chase, play on the level of a Justin Jefferson, and they're going to be willing to give us a draft pick, whether it be in this draft or the next draft, that we can now continue to build a team with. But to me, when you put this news out there, there are teams who know that maybe if a Sonny Styles falls or maybe if an Arvell Reese falls, you're not going to put together a package to move up and get them. And hell, if you want to make a big splash, let's say Jeremiah Love gets past number 5 and you think, let's just add another dynamic player because we might not have George Pickens. You're not even trying to do that. And so to me, to let this information get out is to say that we want to move George Pickens within this draft, and they're going to have to now focus and draft accordingly. But to me, you do not reach. If a wide receiver falls to you at 12, namely Jordan Tyson, I believe you make that move. If not, you draft the best player available for a defense that needs a ton of work.
Mina?
I don't think that the Jones family had to do a presser to get the word out. I mean, their phones work, right? They know the other owners and GMs in the league. This, to me, I felt like they were pre-justifying to their fan base what might happen in this draft, which is the possibility they might take a receiver and look to trade Pickens. And if they do that, if they got Jordan Tyson and they got a significant draft pick for Pickens, honestly, I would praise them. That would be good business on their part. As far as those 2 picks go, though, there are a lot of needs on defense with this team. We talk about this, really, it's been a few years now, but they could go edge, they could go linebacker, they could go safety, they could go corner. Yes, I am naming every single position on defense because they need all of them. So I do think that if you're Dallas, you want to consider holding on to those picks. Possibly I would consider moving out for Arvell Reese, but that's it.
Here's the deal. We talk about the Cowboys here. Understand that, first of all, a couple of things. RC is phenomenal. There's so much when it comes to football. Singing is not your gift, my brother. It just isn't. Just want to get that out the way. Just get that
I
out
was
the
just
way.
doing the hook, Stephen A.
I understand, but I'm here for you. I'm here for you, my brother. I'm here for you. We all have a gift. That ain't yours, okay? Let's get that out the way, right? Now that we've said that, let's say this, okay? Like Mina said, they need everything on defense. They need an edge rusher, right? They need a linebacker. They need a cornerback. We know they have a multitude of needs, right? Here's my problem with the Dallas Cowboys. They're so interested in the damn headlines. They're so interested in the damn sizzle. They never realize the rippling effect it has on the franchise. You got a quarterback that's been on the record saying he wants George Pickens back. You got a guy in CeeDee Lamb that says he wants his teammate back, all right? You got this stuff. Now, that doesn't mean that you make those decisions based on what players want, but if you got high-end producers on the offensive side of the ball and you know that you've developed that kind of chemistry and you're clicking, you certainly don't want to get in the way of that. And if you're going to get in the way of that, then you handle it differently. You don't handle it in similar fashion to what you did with Micah Parsons, because before long, stuff gets in the way. Like, for example, when you made your trades mid-season, had you done it a couple of weeks earlier, you might have had a shot at making the playoffs, but you waited. And so I just look at them and I just say to myself, okay, if you're going to do something, do it. You want to draft a wide receiver, fine. You want to use these 2 picks on the defensive player, fine. But what you do is you'll go ahead after franchise tagging George Pickens. You move on from him. Why? Because you know you don't want that brother in your locker room because of the way you handled it, how salty he is going to be, the likelihood of him being on the football field making business decisions because he's got a long-term deal that he's aspiring for. So there's certain things that he would do on the football field that he may not do this year that he was willing to do last year. All of these things play a role, and Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones never seem to think about that nearly as much as they think about these press conferences that generate headlines, that make them the center of attention, which is, I'm not telling you anything I haven't told them to their face. It's what they do, but they're going to do it anyway, period.
All right, we'll see what happens tonight. Again, the Cowboys have 2 picks in the first round. Enjoy, Mina and Ryan. Thank you. Enjoy
Pittsburgh and the nice weather, y'all.
Coming up, we are in the middle of the NBA playoffs, and Kenny Smith, you remember he won back-to-back titles in Houston. Does the former Rocket star think LeBron has been that good, or his team has been that?
A lot of these things, they make their way toward a long-term deal.
All right, back here with the fellas. You got Dano and Schrager in Pittsburgh, here with Graz, the Hall of Famer Michael Wilbon, as well as Jordan here. Dano, are the Cowboys and George Pickens headed for a divorce here, considering all the layers in that conversation that we just heard from Stephen Jones?
Yeah, because Stephen Jones just said in his words, it's really hard to pay 2 receivers top of the market. CeeDee Lamb, I said before, $46 million in 2027. That's the salary cap hit. I believe Graz corrected that the salary for him is $28 million. You're not paying both those guys in 27. So, and I would tell you this. I believe his agent, David Mulgeta, may have had one player play under the franchise tag. I think maybe it was T. Higgins. I could be incorrect on that, I think. And so I just don't see how the agent and player are going to say, you know what, you're right, Dallas. We'll play on the tag once again and just ho-hum this. And then the Cowboys just not finding a different way to figure out their situation. I really believe that tonight at 12, if Carnell Tate or Jordan Tyson fall, even though the Cowboys have a ton of draft defensive needs, that they will draft one of those players, and then this becomes a very, very interesting situation.
Traeger, jump in here.
Everything's always very calculated when you talk about an NFL press conference a day before the draft. They could do these pre-draft press conferences whenever. They don't have to do them at all. And Stephen Jones went out of his way to say that we're not going to do a long-term deal with George Pickens. What does that tell me? Come and make an offer, folks. Come and make an offer. This guy's on the franchise tag. We don't plan on paying him long-term. The draft starts at 8 o'clock tonight, but I tell you, the phone lines are open. Who wants to trade for George Pickens? Also, we have the 12th and the 20th pick. There are 3 really talented wide receivers in this draft. Jordan Tyson, Carnell Tate, and then Mekhi Lemon out of USC. Does Dallas look at their draft and say 12 and 20, we can maybe move back a little bit and get Lemon? Do we have to move up to get Tyson? Their intentions were made very clear yesterday when they not only made a point to talk about this publicly the day before the draft, but to even address it in such clarity as they did, they're not buffoons over there with the way they handle the media. And this was done very craftfully and done very deliberately to make sure the rest of the league knows you can come and get Pickens if you make the right offer.
And by the way, keep in mind here, we're talking about a team you mentioned that picks at 12 and 20, and they need so much help on the defensive side heading into round one.
They do. I just want to take a quick second to laud the Cowboys for their pre-draft press conference. In case anybody missed it,
Bill Clinton.
at some point, Bill Clinton walks in the room. Jerry Jones gets up to go greet him, almost wipes out, getting off the stage to go talk to Bill Clinton. And then you see the empty chair there because Jerry's off talking to Bill when Stephen Jones says, we're not going to give George Pickens a long-term deal. I was on the phone with Todd Archer, who covers the Cowboys for us, and he was like, all right, I got to go now. I'm pulling into the Star for this press conference. I'm sure nothing's going to happen. I texted Todd later in the day, like, last time we said something like that.
And by the way, some context on why the former president, Bill Clinton, was there. They're Arkansas buddies. They got to go back to Arkansas with Jerry Jones and, of course, you know,
every year that
Bill Clinton
Jerry won the Super Bowl and went to the White House, Clinton was the president.
Yes.
So that's how long ago that was. But to get back to the draft, like the Dallas Cowboys know they need defensive help. And I think, you know, if they're sitting there at 12 and they're watching, like, you know, Sonny Styles, Caleb Downs, Mansour Delane go off the board, then I think you're either looking at, can we trade up a little bit to get a guy like that, or do we trade back and amass more picks? They don't have a second rounder. Or do we sit tight and take the receiver? If they like Jordan Tyson and he's there, then I think that's part of their calculus as well. I'm not buying the idea of the Cowboys trading 12 and 20 to go all the way up into the top 5. That just is not the kind of thing they do in the draft. But I do think that they're able to maneuver a little bit up or down depending on how it shakes out in front of them.
It's never dull.
No, I was going to say, it's a recipe for drama.
Yeah.
That's what this is. You call a press conference to announce a divorce from a guy you're handing $27 million, or hope to, since he hasn't signed the one-year deal yet. It's just, I was going to say only the Cowboys. Maybe not only the Cowboys, but primarily the Cowboys. Okay, so you've painted, you've given us these scenarios. What do you expect to happen?
I think when it comes to the draft with the Cowboys, in the past decade plus, it has tended to be more boring than we like. And so my expectation is that they'll either sit tight at 12, take the best guy on their board, or if the deal is there and it doesn't also cost them pick 20, maybe they move up a couple of spots to secure one of those defensive guys. No,
from
12.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like a little bit of a reality TV show. So let the expert reality TV chime in. If it looks messy, on the edit, you can guarantee it's messier behind the scenes. That relationship is broken. So whether something happens with a trade during this draft window or after, I don't see Pickens being a part of the Dallas Cowboys.
Well, we know the Joneses. They love live TV. I don't know. There's not a lot of
always
editing.
messier behind the scenes than even the edit shows you. I can promise you that.
As a fan, more of a fan of Summer House than what the show that Jordan. No, I'm kidding. I don't even know the reality TV.
Hey,
I was just
come
saying.
on, Treg. Yes, you do.
This is. I'm a Bachelor guy. You know that. I would say that truthfully, Pickens and the situation they're in right now, he was given 1 year with a carrot at the end, basically saying, be on your best behavior. Do everything you can. He was outstanding last year. And for the Cowboys still to come out and be like, yeah, we're not going to find a way to pay this guy, it tells me, as Jordan and Dan have both alluded to, there might be more behind the scenes than we know.
Well, keep an eye. If we hear George Pickens' name tonight, potentially in those draft rumors and how that plays out, because the Cowboys do not have a second-round pick. All right, coming up. A thunderstorm. SGA goes off on the